Whoa. So, what is this podcast about? Well, it starts off about bias and negative bias and where it comes from and how it scared the living daylights out of me. And then deep thinking, deep thoughts. And we go into it, I say, in a deep dive of how we can change our negative bias, which has been ingrained in us from such an early age. I think it's so important. It was important in the past, and it's even more important in this current world. So please enjoy, and if it does nothing else but make you stop and muse and think how we can all be different, that would be awesome. Have a real bit of fun listening to this, and just enjoy. Just enjoy. I'll see you in a moment after the next bit. Hey, for those of you who don't know what this podcast's about, well, it's all about obviously personal development. Unplugged, why unplugged? Well, what we're going to do is break down, deconstruct all the things that are made bloody difficult by a lot of people. They tell you what they're doing, but they don't tell you how they did it. And that's what we're going to do, break down what they do into the hows and make wonderful changes. There'll be things that are stopping you, and we'll be helping you find out why that's happening and how can you change that. Because when you do, dreams become reality, and you then become a dreamer of big dreams, creating the most wonderful, brightest, most exciting new reality you can ever find. Anyway, that's it. Who am I? I'm Paul Clough. I'm an NLP trainer, a master hypnotist. I do all sorts of things that will blow your mind. Come and enjoy it with me.
Warning. You are entering into the unplugged mind of Paul Clough. Too late. Personal Development Unplugged.
Hey, my friends. How you doing today? How you doing? I'm so pleased that you are sparing your time with me. I know time is so precious. And for you to share it with me, that's pretty awesome. So I am truly grateful. And today I'm also not only grateful, but I'm a little bit scared, along with being a little bit curious. You see, as usual, I'm listening to podcasts and things like that, things what are going on in the world. And what I heard, I was curious about. And then the more curious I got, the more scared I became. And scared in a way that, not like, oh, this is really frightening now, but it's really just scary to think about what you're talking about. Well, it's cognitive bias. And I wanted to look it up exactly what it meant. Because I had my idea, but I just wanted to know. And what I found was I'm going to say this, try to say it properly. The systematic pattern of deviation from norm or rationality in judgment. Got it. The systematic pattern of deviation from norm or rationality in judgment. We create our own subjective reality from what we perceive. Now, in NLP, and I'm sure it's everywhere else, you learn these things, perception is projection. What we perceive in the world comes in and then we project it out in the world. Now, I knew that, but I didn't put the two together that much, but I knew that we had to be aware of what we are perceiving of the world. But it got deeper than that. You see, I was listening to, Jordan Harbinger, but he was talking to this lady called Jennifer Eberhardt. I do hope I got her surname right. And she was talking about how she had looked into this thing about cognitive bias and how it affects us. And she was saying things like, and this is my interpretation, not what she said, but it's like there's so much noise in the background that will affect us, that will actually program you. And I thought, well, yeah, that's obvious, but then she was telling about the effects of that noise, of how we can be biased against people. And that really got me, especially in this weird and horrible time that we live in. See, I know with my work as a therapist that those first 5 years, and this is pretty standard, some people say it's before 5 years, but that first 5 years, we're like a sponge, aren't we? We're like a sponge, and we take on everything that's around us, but especially things like mums and dads, grandparents, the people who acted like mums and dads and grandparents, maybe a teacher or two, maybe brothers, and then that goes on a little bit longer, I guess, until we got them all fully ingrained. But what else is there? What else is that noise? The noise that creates this deviation from the norm or rationality. That's what really got me. Deviation from the norm or rationality in judgment, and then actually creating that our own subjective experience at that age. And the information she was giving was how even youngsters could take on what their parents were doing. And yeah, you think about it, modelling. Who have they got to model? Who do they look up to? Who protects them? Who protects you? Who protected you when you were younger? And how they protected you, or how they behaved, would affect you uncritically most of the time. And if you think about it, and we've talked about this before about beliefs, where did they get their beliefs from? Where did they get their behaviours from? Where did they get their bias from? And then you go back into grandparents, and the world then was so, well, I had all that horrible stuff going on. So therefore, maybe it's just filtering down. But you think about it, what kind of noise is there around? What type of noise can we, and this is just at 5 years now, up to 5 years. Think about it now, from all your life. What kind of noise have you been subjected to, that's a better way of saying it, subjected to, that you weren't necessarily aware of? Maybe it was just the radio in the background. Maybe it was the TV in the corner. You were doing something else, but you were listening to things. Maybe in the corner of your eye, but in the corner of your unconscious mind's eye, was taking it all in. Why? Because it wants to protect you. So it's on the lookout, isn't it, for all these things that could affect you, could keep you unsafe. Think about the non-verbal communication of other people. The way they move, the way they react. And you put two together. This has just come to me. I can remember working with a young lady about a phobia for spiders. What's that got to do with this non-verbal communication? Let me tell you. She thought she'd been chased with a spider when she was about 7, and that was the cause of her phobia. But when we got into it, she had this little memory pop in, and she remembered her big uncle, because she was only about 3 then. So you can imagine, not uncle, granddad, a big granddad who looked after her. She loved being with him. He was coming downstairs from the bedroom. He'd seen a spider, and he was shaking. He was white. He was frightened. He didn't say anything. May have heard about the spider, but she saw his reaction. Non-verbal communication, taken on uncritically. What happens the next time she sees a spider? Boom, she acts in a really profound manner. So she has taken her perception and really projecting it out. Now that's just, a spider from her granddad. But I wonder what things we've all seen in that non-verbal communication of the people that we love and respect. That's weird, isn't it? Well, it's not weird, but it's just gets me thinking. I've got my boys. I've got some grandchildren as well. Yeah, I know you're going to say, Paul Cluffy, you can't be that old, but I was very, very young when I had my children. But anyway, that's what was really giving me this scary bit. I was curious because I wanted to really dig deeper, because I knew like on a surface level. But Jennifer and Jordan really took it deep. And we learn this thing about, we're uncritically taking this stuff in, and we're learning it. But we're learning it at the unconscious level, which is why when we react, we're reacting unconsciously. So whilst we might think we are the most balanced, unbiased person, sometimes in that stressful situation, we react in a particular way that maybe we're not very proud of. But the thing is, we need to do something about that. Because this was a great podcast, but I want to cover at the end of this podcast the how-tos. How can we restore normal, as it were? What is normal anyway, but restore how we think we would like to be. So we are projecting the true perception of ourselves, or what we've perceived as being that real person. You see, we give, as humans that is, give more importance to negative experiences, hence negative biases. And you see, even if they're insignificant, like I was saying, this thing about the spider, but that's maybe not insignificant, but it was insignificant to most people. So you can imagine having a conversation about somebody else and someone's listening, and it could be you at your age right now. We take these things on personally, don't we? And then we'll react. We see things on telly. Go through your memories of all the television programs and see the stereotypical reactions and actions of those programs. I'm not going to talk about them because I don't want to go there, but as you go through your memories, I can go through mine, that there was the stereotypical bad guy, the robbers, the muggers, the good people. And the thing is, even if that is called insignificant, our unconscious mind is taking that in. And you see, then we go into our mind, and because our unconscious mind is always looking to learn and protect us, it goes, that wasn't good. Oh, I have a positive intention. I have a positive intention to keep you safe. And then we follow our gut, as it were, our unconscious mind, because every behavior we have, even if we don't like our biased behaviors, when I sat down and tried to think about the behaviors I don't like. And I think, well, why do I do them? Because they're unconscious. All behavior is unconscious. Yet every behavior has a positive intention. But based on what? What's that positive? Well, the positive intention we know is going to be safety. But sometimes, I'm going to say in normal times, but now, in these abnormal times that we live in, there are more stresses, there are more strains. You're seeing more in the media. You're seeing or hearing more in the news, the radio. You're also hearing some good stuff, hopefully, in the podcasts, and that's about it, really, because it's your choice then. But it is your choice. It's your choice to try to take in, perceive what you feel is valuable, what you feel is good, which would be aligned with your best intentions, and try to bring back the balance, as it were. Because I make notes about this, and it's all about, I guess, with my meta view was, it's cause and effect. Now, when we're at cause, we're going to take responsibility for what we do, even if we didn't like it, even if we're not proud of it. We have to be responsible for it. And when we're responsible for it, we can change it. And we're going to create the effect because we are now at cause. So therefore, we start to change things. And that's where we're going to go, I think, at the end of this, of how. In the how, it's all about being responsible for the way we act. And the way we act is the way we speak, the way we communicate non-verbally, what we do, how we behave. So we have to be selective, and we have to be aware. Be aware of what is happening, to question it. If you ever listen to the Joe Rogan podcast, he is awesome at questioning things. He doesn't take things on face value. He doesn't just follow what would be, call it the norm or the accepted view. He wants to challenge things, but he challenges those in a conversational way and a curious way. That's what gets me about that. It's all curiosity. He wants to find out both sides. So, but to do that, you have to be selective in what you listen to and ask the right questions, I guess. Here comes that curiosity. Where's the data? Because you're responsible. When you take on that responsibility of the noise around you, the stuff that comes in you, then you will create the right effect. But it's not about being scared, because I decided, it did scare me. I actually emailed Jordan Harbinger to say, what a great podcast. But it scared me. And I wonder how we can change that. Because I said in the hypnosis side, I would really love to work out ways that we can change that unconscious bias to show the unconscious mind that those things are not to be frightened of. In fact, we can learn from them and be stronger. So that's what I like doing. I gave feedback. And I know you're going to say, oh, Paul, you're going to talk about feedback. And yes, I am. Because feedback is like the nurturing of this podcast. So if you could just send me some feedback of how you get the information from me. Is my communication clear? Is it something of interest to you? Is there other issues of interest to you? Any feedback, good, bad, indifferent, is awesome. But feedback with a critique is awesome too, to give me an idea. Anyway, back to this episode. So we need to be so careful, I guess, of what we listen to, what we see. So, knowing that we learn to be biased from the minute we're born, we need to do something about it. Because that was a real thing that shocked me. I knew we took things on uncritically, but I didn't put it into biasness, if that's a word, by learning those things. So that was the shock that I got and made my mind really think. Because you see, the other thing is, our mind, our unconscious mind, will see things that are not there. What, Cluffy? Yeah, because it's seeing something like this. I've talked before, and maybe if you're new, we have a communication model in NLP of an event happens in your life. You're in that event and you take that event in through your senses. Your sight, obviously, but there's kinesthetic, feeling, smell, taste, auditory, sound. You take it through, and maybe there's other senses, but you take it all in. But sometimes you have to make sense of it. And you make sense of it by generalizing things, trying to make order of the unnormal, as it were. We delete things. We delete things that don't make sense to us at that particular time, because if we got everything into our brain, it would go pop. So we have to delete the things that we don't understand to get understanding. And then we also distort things. So all this information is coming to us, and we generalize, delete, and distort to make sense of the world. And this is what we do in hypnosis. We use this deletion, distortion, and generalization. In one of the effects of hypnosis is to have positive or negative hallucinations. And they're just natural things, where you see something that isn't there, or you don't see something that isn't there, that is there rather. And we do that ourselves. How many times have you looked for your keys? And unfortunately you say to yourself, I can't find my keys. I can't find my keys. I can't. They're lost. So you're actually giving yourself a great hypnotic suggestion there. But also, they're probably on the coffee table. And you've looked there. Or you've looked everywhere. And you keep looking at that same place. And then all of a sudden someone comes up and says, here they are. And they're on the coffee table. Or wherever you looked, they were there. But you were just in a way that you hallucinated something different. And that's what happens a little bit with us, I guess, when it comes to this perception and projection. How we take things on. You see, it comes into effect, I guess, and not primarily, the way they were talking in the podcast is when we think of race and ethnicity. I hope I got that right. But I wanted to expand that. We do it with all sorts of things. You know, you get this thing about the bums in this world. No, what a horrible term that is. People really down on their luck. Maybe suffering from drugs, and that's the only way, but behaviours, positive intention. These behaviours are no longer appropriate. But you've also got the way people dress, the way people walk. Maybe it's a tone of voice or a look. You know, the list goes on and on and on. And what happens? Well, it goes in through those senses. We delete, distort, we generalize. And what do? We make, with our unconscious mind, goes way back to our biases and go, that's a good person, that's a bad person. And we don't know them. But we've made a judgment. And then how we act. So, perceive, project. We act in that accord. Which, understandable when we think about it, because it is all about keeping ourselves safe at the unconscious level. But a lot of times, we're wrong. We need to get more facts. But our unconscious mind is always on that aware, always being aware. just in case. And I think we need to catch ourselves. Just catch ourselves of what is happening. Maybe study other people when you see them and go, yeah, that wasn't, how can we change that? And as we said, this type of noise doesn't stop, does it? So this is how we react with that, going back to our biases of using anything that we see. But we've got things, as I said, everything in the media. Think about it now. How does the news get to you? Whichever channel you look. I very rarely now look at the news. I do occasionally just to see how crap it is. Even more biased. Now, if you're listening to a biased news, you're already on that biasness, which is reinforcing your bias, isn't it? And they do that deliberately to reinforce your bias, so you'll always come back to them. Do you ever see a news channel saying, well, this is one side and this is the other? I wonder, let's discuss this properly. There are a few people around who do that, but that doesn't sell, does it? Think of the way you hear reporting. Think of the words they use. They're inflammatory words, aren't they, in that biasness? And even if you're not watching it, it could be just coming in as noise in the background. But it's also noise on social media, because you press on one thing. What happens? You get more of that same stuff, that same bias. And sometimes you might think that, well, I can't escape it. Well, you can't escape it if you don't take responsibility, I guess. That would be my thought. And that's where I came right from the beginning. Cause and effect, taking responsibility of your actions. And your actions are the things you listen to, what you see in the world, what you hear about in the world. You see, it's a little bit like, and this came to me a little while ago. A few years ago, I used to listen to a guy, I'm going to talk about him in a moment, who would talk about self-sovereignty. And the self-sovereignty that he would talk about was all about taking responsibility for what you digest. Now, the first thing is, it was like, what do you eat? What is your intake? But also, then it went further, because that was the first thing that you could physically be responsible for. Are you eating junk, or are you eating something healthy to make your body healthy? But then it went further. What are you digesting through your eyes, through your ears, through all your senses, and being able to switch it off? You have to, I guess, stop or take responsibility for what you are digesting in all your senses. And people give you so much information about, well, just simply stop listening. Now, if you could, do it. Or what I suggest is, sometimes that's a really big jump. And we've always said when we take a big jump, that's when confusion sets in, or whether our motivation suddenly drops off. Because it's too big a jump. We haven't got the end in mind, and it's too big a jump. But we need to take baby steps, I guess. So turning off parts of social media, maybe. Turning off those notifications. So you only look at it at a particular time of the day, and then you be selective. And you have an intention when you're looking at your social media of what you want to see, and question why you're seeing it. Is it effective, what you're doing? And there was a great thing. It was Cal Newport. He did an experiment. My son actually got into it as well. And it was coming off of social media, everything to do with social media on your phone. All the apps on your phone. Come off them for 30 days. And then instead of just coming back and then going, oh, that's it, we'll go back. It was actually taking responsibility and being selective of what you turn back on and how you turned it back on. So you were then selective within the app. That's made such a difference to my son. He's very focused now. And he seems, when I talk to him, he seems to be, call it more balanced. Not that he was unbalanced. Well, I'm his dad, but his views seem to be more balanced. He was being curious about good things in the world, to do good things in the world. And that's the closest I can get to that. But I really think we need to address that. Don't you? What do you think? Do we need to be more accountable to address the balance? I think we do. And how do you do that? Well, the most obvious one, I guess, is catch yourself. and question yourself at the time. Is this true? Where's the data? How do you come to that conclusion? Is it, what's the word? Causation and correlation. I think that's the way you put it. Correlation does not necessarily mean causation. And that's what a lot of the news do. Look, this happened, that happened, so it must mean this. And you go, whoa, let's question that. Because a lot of time we take it on uncritically because we're maybe just a little bit too busy in the world. And we can't do so many things at once. So we just have to catch ourselves. When we do, question. Question the information. Question the noise. And even question, does it support me? Does this noise support me? Is it doing me any good? Because if it isn't, turn it off, I guess. Now, the other side of that, and we don't do one without the other, or we don't do one, we try to do them all, I guess. The other side of that coin is to look for, actively be curious, to look for things such as acts of kindness and get that feeling from an act of kindness. I know a few times when I've looked at a YouTube video and seen an act of kindness, it's like the old tears still begin to well up, don't they? And that means, and that real feeling is, oh, that was so good. Well, if that was so good, we can then start to muse, that good old bit of musing, pondering, stopping, pausing. Think about what it meant, how it felt, and maybe just think, I wonder what I could do. Because if we can start to perceive better things in the world, we'll start to project better things in the world. We will, I guess, and this is my thought, is, we'll overwhelm or change that biasness because our unconscious mind will see it's untrue. It will also see that we don't need to protect ourselves from that stuff. Because when you question yourself about this and question your behaviors, if you catch yourself doing something, you go, oh, I wonder where I learnt that. I wonder what the intention is. And is there a better way? Is it right that I acted that way? These are all things that we can just sit down and ponder over, that cup of coffee, that glass of wine, a beer. Maybe write these things down so we don't forget them. I mean, one of the biggest things I think that we could do, I won't say should, but it's a thing that really works so well, is just having that act of gratitude. Now, what does that mean? I put it, a lot of people, there's lots of different ways of having an act of gratitude, but to me, it is just noticing things that you're grateful for, and then go into that feeling. Really feel grateful. So in effect, you tend to lose the things you were thinking of and just feel it. Marvel at this feeling. Marvel at the thing that you're grateful for. And then when you do that, you might want to set your intention to do something special that will have this feeling of gratitude. Because sometimes I guess, and this is where it came to me a long time ago, this is where I said we'd come back to this guy called Jeff Thompson. I've spoken to him about him before. He had this really depressed time at one time because he could see all the negativity. He could see things going on in the world that really depressed him. Negative things, and he could do nothing about it. Other countries, other parts of the world, things were happening that he literally could not do anything about. It's big stuff. And he was getting very depressed about it, getting angry about it. And his lovely wife gave him some brilliant advice. And it was simple advice. And we love simplicity here, don't we? In simplicity, there's genius. And her advice was, hey, Jeff, look out the window. And he said, what? All this stuff is going out in the world. See the news, how negative it is. Hear it on the radio. Pick it up in the newspaper. See it on your social media. There's horrible things going on. Want to do something about it and I can't. I feel so frustrated, so depressed about it. She said, look out the window where you live. And he said, what do you mean? He said, there are people in this street, in this road, in this avenue, who could use your help. You could help them. You don't have to go any further than that. People are there right out your window. Think of the phone calls you've had. The people who call you and ask for your help. They're there, very effectively, through the window, looking in you. Think of the emails you have, Jeff, that ask you for help. Your friends the people you meet by when you do your martial arts or you do your talks, how you affect people. You affect people in your closest vicinity, as it were. Effectively, what you're doing is doing good in your world, your backyard world. But it is your world, because you're doing good in the world, in your world. And as we always say here, you'll never know how far the ripples of change will go. You never will do. But one thing you could be 100% guaranteed certain of, they're going to go far and wide, further than you can think, further than your imagination, and your imagination is limitless. So how far can they go? Like that butterfly flapping. If we all just look through the window, I guess, get grateful, question the noise that's coming through, set our intention to do good in the world. One of the things I wanted to talk about, and I maybe talk about it separately as well, but that saying, leaving people that you meet in a better place than when you first met them. That's people, everyone. Meeting everyone and leaving everyone that you do meet, everyone, in a better place than you met them. That's doing good in your world. It's doing good with the people just outside your window, the people in your vicinity. You then become the example of what you want to see in the world. Perception, projection. You can be the change you want to see in the world. How do you do all of this? I just think it's that simple. Simple as just pausing, reflecting, catching ourselves in the moment and thinking, I've got to do something about that now. You remember, well, maybe you don't. I was talking about how we communicate, and if we say the wrong thing, and instead of just mumbling through it, we stop and catch ourselves and say, no, I didn't mean to say that. That's not the way I wanted to communicate. That's not the way I wanted you to feel about this. This was my intention. What a difference the world would make, wouldn't it? But more importantly, not more importantly, I guess, but importantly, I believe you will begin to reset that dial of bias. You will begin by looking for the goodness and how you can project that goodness. And your unconscious mind will then get to literally, okay, it'll always keep that positive intention of keeping you safe, but keeping you safe in a good way, in an appropriate way. And that's the thing, appropriate. So if someone does come and they are nasty, you'll react in the right way. But you won't assume from that old position of bias, that negative bias. And as we always say, and we've talked about it before, it's all about striving, I guess, to be our best. So we pause, we reflect, and on striving to be our best, we recommit to be our best. Because you have to keep recommitting, I guess, and keep striving, keep reminding ourselves. Effectively, my final note was, just say no. When you hear something which is negative, when you feel it's biased, you just say no. That's it. No. This is not right. Be brave to be who you really are and change this bias. And that's right, all this came from. There's one, listening to a podcast that I wasn't going to really be interested in, but I just wanted to think what this cognitive bias was and what this lady Jennifer was talking about. And it scared the living bejeebers out of me about what was happening and how I react and how other people react. But I think something's good. Well, it's good to come out, because if nothing else, I've stopped, I've paused. It's made me remember, if you could do such a thing, of cause and effect, taking that responsibility, saying no, pausing, reflecting, and striving to be our best, dealing with the things that we can deal with, changing the things that we can change. I guess the important thing about this is if we take care of ourselves in that way, we'll be taking care of others, because we'll be taking in truthful things and we're projecting the true selves of us. Have a think about all of that. That's a lot to think about, isn't it? All about cognitive bias, I can't say that word, the systematic pattern of deviation from norm or rationality in judgment, creating your own subjective reality from what we perceive. So we need to perceive good stuff, I guess, so we come back to the norm and create a wonderful world. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that little long ramble of me just talking out loud. I hope you did. And there are ways that we can all work together. Please, as I said about that feedback, please let me know. I'd love to know the golden nuggets. If you found them, I hid them well, maybe. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I let them shine out. I'd love to know your thoughts, whether I'm talking an old, complete load of old bunkum, if that's a word, or whether you think there's something there. I'd love to know your thoughts about the subject matter we can go even deeper in, and what type of the how-tos you'd like to know, how to deal with various things. Because I'm sure if there's a process, I'll find it, and if there isn't one, well, I'll develop one for you. So there's the thing. The only thing I'd say is, have more fun than you can stand being the real you and spreading the real you, being the change you want to see in others. Okay, that's enough, I think. Until next time, my friend, enjoy every heartbeat and be the real you. Bye-bye now. Hey, here's a quick early before you go. It's a new thing I want to introduce. You see, there's a huge back catalogue here of what I believe is lots of golden nuggets that have been sprayed around. Yeah, some of the recordings might be a little bit on the iffy side, but they're not that bad actually when I look back. But I've noticed when I've looked at other podcasts, when I've been new to them, I don't know where to start looking. I can do the latest episodes, but what about the things that have gone on before? Well, I'm going to give you the old heads up to a podcast of the past that might just float your boat, that might just go, oh, just what I needed. And if nothing else, you get to know what we were talking about way back then. So if you're new to this will be a great thing to do, to dive back. If you're not and you remember them, you might be a great place to actually remember the stuff that we've done and learn even more, because when you listen to it, you'll learn more than you did the first time. Anyway, here's one. It's way back in May 2018. It was #97, and it was called Your Hero's Journey. Here's the heads up to it, and if you like it, go back there and listen to it now. Here's today's heads up of the podcast. It's all about encouraging you, really. Encouraging you to carry on in this adventure and likening it to what it really is. The hero's adventure, and you are the hero and the changes you can make. So let me just ramble, if you would, and I'll share you my little adventure too, where it started, where it is, and then we'll have to imagine where it goes to. Hey, before you go, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed the things that you heard, but more than that, I hope you got a golden nugget out of this, a little golden nugget, a little piece of information that may just change your life. I hope you did. I know there's more than one in there somewhere, and I know you'll find it, because when you set your intention to find what you want, I know you'll find it. So find those golden nuggets. I'd love the feedback to know what you did find, what you found interesting, what you did with it, and the results you got. If you just email me at I'll say that again, email me at feedback@personaldevelopmentunplugged.com. And I know you, like me, like sharing the things that we learn. So please share this episode, share the podcast. Please tell people about it. It does me some good. It makes me feel good, I know that. A little bit of ego in there, but also it will share these type of learnings and get people interested in changing their lives too. And that's got to be a good thing. So if you can share this, it's like a pay it forward. And also just make sure you subscribe if you could. If you enjoyed these episodes, please subscribe. There'll be a subscribe button in the platform you listen to. Search for Personal Development Unplugged or my name, Paul Clough. Hit the subscribe button, and then we'll have more fun every time we talk to each other. Anyway, enjoy.
Warning, you are now leaving the unplugged mind of Paul Clough. It's time to fly on your own. Be brave, my friend.
Personal Development Unplugged.